the LFDRA. We are League for Republic Democracy of Australia. I am Chief and President of the LFDRA, League for Republic Democracy of Australia. We have some new found on the lfdra.org website. You can visit 9th or 13th, 2018. So, League for Republic Democracy of Australia, we are lfdra.org. Under an LFDRA government, all Australians receive complimentary 3-bedroom homes and ownership title documents with solar power generation allowance, ending slavery entrapment for all Australians. lfdra.org, League for Republic Democracy of Australia. We will never condone violence by Tony against women. We will spend $150 million on a referendum for medical and medicinal forms of cannabis and registering strain strength at glass jar, tongs and paper bag dispensaries. Banks sell products when rates are low, and when their other businesses run a loss, banks skim with overdraft fees and say, come and have a beer. $100 billion will create 17 million homes for Australians with an 8 kilowatt solar power household generation allowance, complementary, ending slavery entrapment for Australians, and keeping Australia an Australian English literacy speaking country. Today, the other day, Scott Morrison announced $1 billion plus for a murderous chemical warfare, torturous rampage on the populace of Australia. We will never ever fund mind control chemical warfare on the populace of Australia that the murderous Liberal, Labor and National Party and staffers do. We will never fund mind control chemical warfare extortion in Australia. We will end registration legislated insurance extortion in Australia by private business that legislated for insurance extortion. And we will end a Liberal National Party that took $200 million from Kerry Packer in 1984. No wonder people were kicked out of South Africa. Malcolm Turnbull took the $200 million from Kerry Packer back in 1984. Why do the people of Australia have to pay to give other businesses free recycling? We will also ensure Aquis inspectors, Australian Quarantine Inspection Service inspectors for domestic consumption of pulp fruit processing. No Aquis inspector, no domestic consumption or export of any pulp fruit within Australian border. Infectious air is found at altitude. The solar power household solar allowance of 8 kilowatt generation. $150 billion with the $100 million for the 17 million complementary homes with the solar power generation allowance. We know 80% of the population of Australia are homeless renters, entrapped in slavery. So we will end slavery entrapment within Australia. We know property investors in Queensland that were exploiting Australians, pushing them into slavery entrapment for housing investment exploits that left Australians with nothing. We will never ever support a dual Australian shareholder, Japan shareholder airline. We will ensure all Japanese are registered with alien registration cards, and trade with Japan is outlawed. According to the research I undertook in Murphy's Creek, Murphy's Creek, Murphy's Creek. According to the research I undertook, the damn wall should have been built. Chemical warfare at the state school. Prior to the last time Big Swamp reoccurred, there was one bark hut and a rusted water tank recoat with paint. The old town relocated to the city many century and a half ago. The damn wall should have been built. As the old township moved to the city, McDonald, the Liberal Party's only thought was about his family business bottom line. That lost power. Peter Beattie forecast it, the artesian basin would have been refilled with the dam wall, which would have protected Lockyer Valley and the people of Brisbane from flood event, including turbine electricity. And it's actually time, if the LFDRA government is elected in Australia, and we are Republic of Australia, and we will be Republic of Australia, LFDRA, League for Republic Democracy of Australia, including turbine electricity and the acquisition of Murphy's Creek, Murphy's Creek for the dam wall to be built with turbine electricity. And that's what will happen under an LFDRA government, and there'll be $1 billion for the construction of that. We know Jap tactics and will never be fooled by the Japanese ever again. We will never fund mind control chemical warfare on the populace of Australia. It's true. Liberal, Labor and the National Party destroy life expectancy and population growth in Australia with mind control chemical warfare. Republic of Australia, and long live Republic of Australia, so help you God. Ending mind control, weaponised gulags in Australia. Just a brief about history. In Russia. In Russia, there was the Stalin Soviet Union, and there were many gulags. Many people of Russia were enslaved in mind control weaponry gulags in Russia. Stalin fell, which actually liberated the people of Russia, and we saw the end of the gulags in Russia. We ask the people of Russia to enter into a free trade agreement while maintaining bilateral free trade with China. Scott Morrison, Bill Shorten, Tony Abbott, John Howard and Malcolm Turnbull all support a murderous chemical warfare rampage on the populace of Australia through their chemical warfare gulags, facilitated by a murderous rampage by state governments and Mark Butler had a ministry, which in no way, shape or form is a health product, on the populace of Australia, in which, this is true, the Fed facilitates a murderous chemical warfare campaign, as Scott Morrison announced $1 billion for chemical warfare within Australia, facilitated by the state extortionists for plastic storage and power plays that David Irvine allowed, and he said they were his facilitators. Wads of cash campaign to the highest bidder on the populace of Australia. Well, like I said, the other day, Scott Morrison announced $1 billion plus for a murderous chemical warfare torturous rampage on the populace of Australia. We will never ever fund mind control chemical warfare gulags on the populace of Australia that the murderous Liberal, Labor and National Party and staffers do. We know past and present state auxiliaries were raping their abducted, tortured and chemical warfare induced victims for non-integral Liberal and Labor and National Party staffers and the wads of cash pregnancy category testing. And that will end under an LFDRA government. We will never ever fund mind control chemical warfare on the populace of Australia as Liberal, Labor and the National Party destroy life expectancy and population in Australia, like we have seen with the McDonald family and the Liberal Party and Malcolm Turnbull taking the $200 million from Kerry Packer back in 1984. Long live Republic of Australia, so help you God, doing what's right. And when Jackie Lambie, I have a lot of admiration and respect for Jackie Lambie. It was when Jackie Lambie said in the Senate, doing what's right. The hierarchical order at the time brought Jackie Lambie down for her saying, doing what's right. And the hierarchical order within Australia brought Jackie Lambie down for saying, doing what's right. We will end private business, car registration, insurance extortion by legislated private business in Australia. Long live Republic of Australia. The age pension in Australia under an LFDRA government will be at age 55, tax-free superannuation release, including an extra 2 times $100 notes for all payments in Australia. We are LFDRA.org. This is League for Republic Democracy of Australia. I am President and Chief of the LFDRA, Harry J. Stiller, lfdra.org, and we are also on Facebook. And when we are a governing body in this country, when the election is called in 2019, or if it is in a few months' time, we ask the Australian people to nominate your LFDRA candidate free from Liberal Party in Australia. That is League for Republic Democracy of Australia. Once again, thank you very much for listening. I'm Harry J. Stiller. I'm the Chief and President of the LFDRA, League for Republic Democracy of Australia. And once again, vote for your LFDRA candidates. Nominate your LFDRA candidates that aren't working for Kerry Packer or McDonald. Vote and nominate your LFDRA candidates. If you want to support their family's protection racket for a protection racket for a protection racket, please don't, because that's not the right direction for the people of Australia. Once again, thank you very much for listening. I'm Harry J. Stiller, Chief and President of the LFDRA, and that concludes the live broadcast here at League for Republic Democracy of Australia at the Facebook page. So please do nominate your LFDRA candidates, vote for your LFDRA candidates, and we will be a governing League for Republic Democracy of Australia.